Hello, I am Adam Hanlon from Slate Production, and this is Alien Rescue. Meet T and Nif. They are firefighting aliens. It is their job to save the galaxy from any danger. One day, T and Nif are relaxing on their spaceship, when all of a sudden, the emergency phone begins to ring. Quickly, T runs to the phone. She hears screaming, "Help, help! Our ship is in danger! Can you help us?" T quickly wakes up Nif and tells him what has happened. They fire up the engines and hit the rescue button. Their spaceship flies through the galaxy on a quest to find the spaceship in danger to save the day. So, our game setting will be in space. These aliens, Nif and T, are out to save all the other aliens that are in danger throughout the galaxy. Whenever they crash their ships, T and Nif will fly and try and rescue them. They will encounter strange creatures. These will be from deranged robots that still live on the crashed ship through to ooze that tries to inhabit the broken spaceships. And as they run through each individual damaged spaceships, they will encounter new aliens and save them in each turn. Both Nif and T are two aliens, and they are doing this because they have found special objects, which to you and I are just normal objects. They've found a hammer, an umbrella, and that helps them clear the way. They also collect items from space. These range from energy shards, batteries, even old Earth objects like hats and phones. The game world is evolved around space, from the story, the art, to the characters and the NPCs. So as the team of two, Nif and T, these are both avatars that will run through the game world. One will be controlled at a time with a unique ability to swap these avatars during the playthrough of the level. The player will have a few buttons that will be on screen to grant the ability to control these characters and their abilities. As stated before, one will have a hammer and one will have an umbrella. The enemies are not just inanimate objects. Some of the inanimate objects are speed boost pads, wreckage, hazards, but these will include robots, ooze, and the player needs to eliminate or avoid these enemies by either jumping over them or attacking them, depending on the situation. As this game will be a continuous side-scroller, the player's interaction with the world is based around reacting to the specific obstacles as discussed previously. Some of the obstacles the alien will face will only be able to overcome by one of the avatars. So one of the first innovative features that we will include in this game, and we feel that it is a unique selling point, is the two swappable characters. Even though the runner genre has a lot of games, and this will provide a new perspective, implementing a new game mechanic wherein you take control of a team of two, with the ability to swap between them depending on the contextual enemies and obstacles that these will face. This will be a highly accurate platformer, taking in the vein of Mario, Super Meat Boy, Bit Trip Runner and Mega Man. A unique selling point for the game will be to provide these accurate controls and a platform experience on the mobile platform and other platforms after this. This has multiple benefits. For instance, this will prevent the user from feeling they are being cheated due to either poor controls or the non-responsive nature of characters. This will also encourage the more hardcore audience to get to the more difficult levels and progress throughout the game. The next point we took was the development of an original story that will provide a unique perspective and will help our younger audience to be immersed, while the outlander story will amuse our more mature audiences. We have chosen to work within the genre of runner or side-scroller in order to make this stand out on the mobile market. Never mind the rest of the markets, we will provide a unique twist on the genre by combining the accuracy and speed and play style of this type of runner and merging it with a more coherent storyline set around an outlandish and fun concept, with a unique art style to encourage a player to get into the mindset of the game, to become more immersed. Before we begin to design our own levels, we began researching how other people had carried out their level designs on different platforms. As we are first developing this on the mobile platforms, we took a look into this. We felt that we needed to think and answer the following questions. Will there be enemies? How big will they be? What are their movements? We also had to take into consideration a player's first impressions. When the player begins a level, they should be able to grasp a basic understanding of the game, whether the character is running, walking, jumping within seconds of the beginning of the game. This includes runners and side-scrollers alike. From this research, some of the key aspects we need to bring along is to define the background layer with the layer that the player will collide with. Another one is to have outstanding enemies and item pickups, as the user will then not feel cheated. And as with most runners, we will keep the same format. The player will spawn on the left, and the level continues on off to the right, and we will see the level come into play as the user is able to avoid or eliminate the obstacles in front of them. As we see here, we see a robot, some rubble, a fire pit, and we see platforms, and again another robot. What we will do is we will slowly introduce the user to each of these obstacles in turn in a manner that they will be able to learn. An example of this would be as they are able to jump over a gap, we will give them 2 gaps to jump over to reinforce that idea. We will be keeping the same template as a forced side-scrolling platformer, but this will not be an endless runner as we will have the discrete levels. Through these discrete levels, we will be able to interject story and character arcs. As we are starting just on the mobile platform and then porting it over, we want to keep the buttons on screen simple and basic. The player will be able to use any of the 4 buttons on screen, which will be swap, jump, item up and item forward. Much like games on the same platform, our buttons will be transparent as they do not ruin the aesthetic qualities of the game. As this game will be a forced side-scroller runner, the player will have no use of any directional pad or joystick. Challenges and mechanics. The main objective in this game is for the player to avoid all the obstacles and reach the end of the ship. Whenever a player completes this objective, all the survivors will be rescued and collected from the level, as this is only a virtual representation of the player's progression through the level. This will simulate the main objective for the player as it ties in with the storyline. The secondary objective is to gain a high score by collecting points within each level. In later stages of the game, the player will be able to replay the levels to access alternative routes, which may allow access to more points for that level. Another challenge for the player is to collect the energy shards in each level. The shards are the in-game currency which will allow players to purchase level skips, upgrades and new outfits. So from different aspects of this game, we will need to take into consideration of programming, art, sound, as the 3 main components of this. Programming, we will be using the Unity game engine and programming in C#. To assist us in creating the rest of this game, we will take key points from other plugins which are available on the market. For example, 2D Infinite Runner Toolkit will show us one way of how a game like this could be created. This would be a very useful toolkit to aid the development stages of our game. Another one would be Texture Packer. This will make the process of creating sprite sheets for our 2D characters much easier, as this software package works from our game engine of choice. After the images are created in Photoshop, we will use Texture Packer to put them into sprite sheets and then import them into Unity for the use of our characters in-game. We will also be using the software Photoshop to create the art assets for this game. The assets will range from backgrounds to characters. Once created in Photoshop, certain pieces will be turned into sprite sheets for the characters within our game, and others will remain as they are. For sound, we will be using Audacity. This is used to record custom and free sounds to introduce into our game. We can also edit sound effects, and available to us are several plugins through this software, such as lame encoding libraries, which will enable us to export our audios as MP3s. We have considered many aspects to add to our prototype design, but we do have time constraints. And we believe that if we are able to develop these key aspects, we will be able to show off what we can do in the long run. At the end of our prototype, we will have one full game level. This will be an intermediate level. We will also provide a functional menu system. In the prototype, we will have this system going from start screen to the level select screen and into the game mode, where the menus such as pause and end screens will be incorporated as well. We will be aiming for our prototype theme to have the level art and make the player characters, enemies and obstacles to fit the exact theme that we want to. Lastly, for our prototype is feedback for the players. We will add counters to the UI and menus, for example the pause menu or the game over screen, so the players know how well they are doing and how far they have left to go. There will also be in-game signs and UI messages to give the player a clear goal as to how to complete each level and get the high scores. We will allow direct feedback to the user, such as haptic feedback, which can be turned on and off in the option menu. Certain player inputs will trigger vibrations to the user. For example, killing an enemy will trigger this small vibration. With game mechanics, the ones that are particular to our game will be character swapping and the use of these particular items. For switching a character, this mechanic will have a button on the UI which is invoked when the player taps it. So the use item will have 2 different states. So it'll have the use item up and the use item forward. For example, the use item forward is another button on the UI. When invoked by the player, this will put the item in front of the player's character. With other game mechanics, including collecting survivors and enemy AI, these will be part and parcel of the level itself. For example, collecting survivors, this will automatically be happening throughout the process if the player is able to get that far in the game. For example, if there was 10 survivors during the level and spread out evenly, if they're able to get 50%, they will already have collected 5. This will be viewed as the main mechanic of the game, but it will only be a counter incremented each one after they run past it. The enemy AI, on the other hand, will need to be interacted by the player in some sort of fashion, either by avoiding or by interacting with an item. So before creating our own, we again looked at what descriptions are already out there. We feel that similar runners like Angry Gran and Temple Castle have things that we want to bring into our own. For example, their clear and concise button style and different points in their description. For our App Store description, we want to put game features and a bit of the story in there, with also links to certain aspects of our game. This mock-up image as well will be something that we will be including, where we will have the 2 main characters to draw attention to that, and the spaceship in space to hammer home what we are about. We have 2 main considerations with our project plan. We have time constraints and focus skills. As we will be developing a prototype under 6 weeks, we would want to divide our time evenly and correctly, and given enough time at the end to polish up our prototype before presentation. With a number of these sections, we will have team leads. For example, with art, we have Una, who will be taking the lead to guide the team through it. We will have other tasks divided up throughout the weeks. So in summary, for Alien Rescue, what we aim to do will be genre breaking. We want to have unique art, we want to have original controls and an immersive story. What we mean by this is we want to have unique art that will enable us to stand out from the crowd and help people get immersed into our game, whether you're a mature audience and you find it amusing, or you're a young audience and you find it intriguing. We want to have original controls, for example the character swapping, and we're going to have contextual item up and item forward. This will also have to be accurate controls, as we want to have our players maintain interest. We will also want to have an immersive story. We will enable ourselves to produce this by having discrete levels which have an end goal, and we are able to feed in the story from level to level. As I said before, this will be a precise platformer. We want to have accuracy to a T whenever it gets to the harder and later levels. We want accurate player feedback, enabling the player to, at a glance, know exactly where they are and help them reach their goal. And we want this to be working on different devices. We want this on iOS, we want this on Android, and we want this on various PCs, for example, Windows, Linux, Mac. From there, the sky is our limit. Well, thank you very much for your time. That was Alien Rescue. If you have any questions for ourselves, anybody in the team, or any other inquiries, please direct all questions to the email that will be in the description. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this presentation from Black Slate Productions.